Good afternoon, good afternoon everyone. Thank you so much for gathering today for another Passion for the Words. This is the third event where we have had writers from across the world, in fact, today, sharing their passions for words, their particular passions. Now, Mel and Inês were both residents at the literary residency in 2015. During that time, they were engaged in a huge raft of workshops that they did in the local high school, and they worked very closely with the students there, introducing creative writing to their lives. They both returned in 2016 to run their own events at the festival, at the Fringe Festival. When the students in the school heard that Mel and Inês were back in Tranås, they said, can they come and see us again? Please, can they come and give us some more workshops? So just off the cuff, they were invited into school and were given another series of session of workshops. They really connected with the students, and I think what's most importantly, Tranås connected with the idea of creative writing and how that can work for positive benefits for young people. Since then, they've been working on a project, they've been developing a project which has just started to be rooted and established this year, and they've been having meetings late into the night talking about how this project will go forward over the next 2 years. But they've been communicating with students through Skype, through FaceTime, through digital media, and they've been working projects together which have had outputs, which have had outcomes that the students have been able to grasp, and there'll be more of that this evening when we get to meet the students in the library at the 6 o'clock event. But for now, I will let these two wonderful writers, these two beautiful women, talk about their passions for words.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much, Dominic, and thank you to people of Tranås, permanently or temporarily, for the residency and for Tranås at the Fringe Festival. The third passion for words, and this year, and my third passion for words at this festival as well. So it's great to be here. Inês and I are going to talk about our project, Young Writers Lab. I'm going to give a bit of a summary, an overview of the project, how it came into being. We're both going to talk about how we did it, how it all worked. We're going to give you a flavour of some of the issues that have arisen for us through the process. And we're also going to say a little bit, give you a little hint about the future of the project. And I hope that there will be an opportunity for questions and from some discussion as well, which I'm sure won't end this afternoon. I'm sure it'll carry on late into the nights that we have with you. So,
just a minute. And we have the pleasure to have Ulrika here, and there's a lot of people involved in this project. So this is really an opportunity to discuss some ideas, and having Ulrika, which is one of the teachers involved in the project, is really good.
Yes, thank you. So Dominic gave you a bit of an idea of where the project came from, or how it came to us, how it arose to us. We've been here in 2015. All four of us, the Alpha Sisters as we were known, were involved in delivering creative writing sessions in the local school, very much thanks to the introduction from Peter Nieberg, who was then teaching in the school. And I think it affected me personally and professionally, and certainly my writing has developed both practically and personally as a result of those experiences and the people that I met. And so that all four of us did some work in the school. We went home, kind of informed our practice. Inês and I came back, as Dominic said, last year, and we were both invited back into the school, even though Peter had since left. The kind of the common linking thread, if you like, was Ulrika, because Ulrika was one of the teachers with whose classes we worked with in the first year. And coinciding with our visit in 2016, Peter had just begun his role, he'd just been seconded into his role to develop literature across the region of Jönköping. And we held it was a kind of passion for words, just in the other bar.
Yeah.
And it was a consultation session where those of us who were residents, who were returning residents, who were people interested in developing approaches to literature in the region, where we met and we shared our experiences from our own country and began to discuss and kind of bounce ideas around how it could be developed in this region. And it was out of that conversation, which then extended into one of those late in the night conversations, that the idea of working with young people, working in the schools and working in a different way, that's where it developed, through different medium. Because I think by that time, Inês and I had come back for a second year, and we felt we can't leave for the second time and not continue the work. How do we sustain and develop creative writing, and how do we keep that international experience which the young people in the schools were, we believe, benefiting from? How can we keep that going without doing more than just coming once a year? How would that happen? And I can't remember where it came, perhaps you'll remember, but we came up with the idea of being able to make use of modern technology, which is very much how young people connect, rather than kind of formal stuff that we're doing now. Let's make use of technology, let's make use of Skype and FaceTime to run creative writing workshops for them. And very quickly, the idea, the name, the idea, the website for Young Writers Lab, very quickly they began to emerge. And it's been one of those organic projects where Inês and I, with our enthusiasm and ideas, have said, this is what we would like to do. And I remember a conversation with Colin saying, that we've got this idea, fantastic idea, this is what we're going to do. You know, and we were fizzing, and he wasn't fizzing yet, because it was only an idea and it had to be implemented. And I guess that was the challenge for me, to make it work.
Mm-hmm. And then after this workshop with Peter, where we, along with Dominic and Chris, a resident in last year, the idea came up, and then we went to school.
Yes.
Like to go into the teachers in that week after, and to say, look, we came up with this idea, so are you willing to collaborate with us? Because we did the first way that came to us of how we could reach the students was through the teachers. So Ulrika was already in for us. But then we had to go into other teachers, and once again Peter helped us to go into school to have these conversations with teachers, and for that time in 2016 it was more or less done. I went again to do some workshops, and then we passed through another stage of this more or less intuitive project, because there was not a structure in that time, and we would not know really that we would reach this moment now. So we then had the courage to go and send emails to the teachers saying, look, we are not there anymore, but we are really willing to do this project. So can we start scheduling Skype meetings? And then another stage of this project started that Mel already introduced, which is the digital communication, and it's one of the most bigger question that we have now. It's how is this communication system with the digital media, and what it represents, and the outcomes that it brings to us as humans and with different cultural backgrounds. But so we started the Skype meetings, and they were like very scary and awkward, because we imagine you are in a very small screen to a class of students, and you just start talking and inviting them to this project, and you just have a quiet crowd, and they don't, and then you just start sending some questions, but you immediately understand that they don't know if they should create a collective voice, or if they should come into the screen and talk to me directly. So immediately we saw, and we were always having our own phone calls and Skype meetings together, how we are going to sort it out. And for this, the teachers were they were the facilitators here, because they would work with their students before we had the Skype meetings, saying like, Inês is coming next week for a Skype meeting, so let's try to, even Ulrika, she would manage to put the tables in a precise way, and this is just details, but they really have importance in the whole project. So
okay, so I'll say we're doing a double act here. So we each had two groups. One of my groups was a group of young people who were in a social studies and economics group, and that was a large class, and I met them on my final Friday in Tranås before I went home. And the teacher she had a conviction that engaging the young people in creative writing would help them with their expression and would help them with their assignments and their exams in social studies and economics. So they weren't necessarily directly interested and clearly interested in creative writing. So that was her motivation and her interest. And from that large class, and they volunteered, half a dozen of them volunteered to come out of the class and to have a kind of their own creative writing session.
Yeah, because
which I facilitated.
Since the beginning, this was something that was important for us, which was, this wasn't a compulsory thing.
Yeah.
It was to the students that actually want to do it, to write,
Yeah.
to commit to it.
Yeah.
So we had a risk here, because we could have no one.
So that was one of my groups, and the other group, who became known as The Unknown, that was the name that they chose for themselves. They were a group of drama theatre studies students, and their teacher, Anna Larsson, was, already they were creative young people. They were involved in creative arts and understood the benefits that creative writing could confer on them and their work. So that was a group of half a dozen, and then they had a group of half a dozen of a group who called themselves Mel's Gang.
Which you can see here. Our web page has a page per group, so you can have a look then when you want. So Mel's Gang. It's under construction. So the unknown page.
There we are.
You can have a brief explanation and some of their writings.
So I met with the drama students towards the end of my leaving Tranås, and I think this is one of the key issues that we need to learn from this project, is that individual connection that we had both with the teacher, I'm looking at Ulrika now, both with the teacher in Tranås and with the young people, that we were able to establish that relationship very early on in a live setting, that it wasn't completely reliant on that sort of distant learning and distant engagement. Having said that, the group that became known as Mel's Gang, I had 2 sessions with them subsequently in the winter, in October and November, and did an experience that Inês has described, where I throw out a prompt and they do some writing, and I ask them to share, or to maybe share the following month what they'd written from the first prompt. Very kind of cautious and diffident about actually sharing their work. And that group were a group of young people who'd only just begun in school. They didn't have an established relationship with each other. So I think that was one of the challenges for me and for the group. They were still jockeying for that social position within the group, and there I was I assuming that they were already a cohesive whole. The other group then, the unknown, I met with them before I left, and they were very enthusiastic and decided immediately that they were happy to have a Skype session in about a month's time. And I said, "What? Can I give you a prompt now? Would you like a prompt now so that you can do some writing in the intervening period, and then we can share that and discuss it when we get back to the next session?"
Yeah, and also we have a very collaborative perspective on this. I mean, we are older than them, and we have experience and life experience, and also we are writers, so we have lots of things to give them. But at least we have been doing this. It's a collaborative project, so I often share my own doubts with my own writings with them. So,
yeah.
And this is important, so you can understand that it's not a dependent relationship where we deliver the workshops and they learn things and then there's an outcome. It's not the point. So.
And I think that's very much because it's a non-formal
exactly.
Process and project.
Yeah.
So we're not about working towards specific grades or specific performance standards.
No.
We're about, in whatever ways we can, generating an enthusiasm for written and spoken word.
The importance of writing.
Yeah.
No matter what are the outcomes.
Yeah.
So, and I have also two groups, and in my case I had very different experiences, and even the methodology that I've used, they are absolutely different from one group to the other. I worked with a group of 5 young Swedish students with Professor Leif. From the class, they volunteered to develop the project during 1 year. So we started to work from Dante, the Divine Comedy, because they were it's the literature teacher, and they were working on Dante's Inferno, the Inferno or Hell, Hell. So they came up. So the first exercise and activities that we have done, I connected with their curriculum in school. So they came up with this name for themselves, which is a pen circle, one of the circles from Dante's. And this is the pictures while I'm in my kitchen in Lisbon doing workshops with them at 8 o'clock in the morning. So, and with this group, we started to develop fiction work. And because this is also very intuitive in terms of what you can, you start working with them and you easily understand how they write, what they are expecting to do, their expectations, what they, if they are more into poetry or not. So it's within the relationship that these things come up. So we started with a list of words of what have you, tell me, do a list of words of every object that you touch since you woke up in the morning until you get school in 2016, and now we are going to do a book launch that came from this list of words. And they have built it up 2 chapters of a future novel, each of them, and their 5 stories they combine into a collective book. And with this group I have this experience, which was I had the teacher in the beginning setting up the meetings and helping me, but in time the thing changed completely. the last 6 months, I contact them. We manage the Skype meetings and all the work, and then we say to the teacher that we have done it. So this is really a very interesting process that writing related with relationship and commitment, totally. And then I have another group. I've been working with another group which is much bigger than this. They were like 12 students, and which is, they named themselves the Together to Write International Class of Tranås, the Tweaked group, and they are the class of Ulrika, and our meetings are like a very interesting communication process, because we speak in English, in Swedish, Ulrika translates into Swedish, from Swedish to Arabic, from Swedish to Farsi to Somali, because it's a class of students that are here not for a long time in specific circumstances, and I think Ulrika can help me to explain a bit. And for us, it was really a challenge, because here we came across, and I was always discussing this with Mel, with the importance of writing to reflect on your circumstances in your life, or just to try to escape from your own wounds. So I knew that we would not be able to write a novel or something big, because there are too many languages to solve out, and also because the students, they are learning Swedish for the first time, and some of them it's the first time they are in school even, because some of them, they come, for instance, from Afghanistan, and they never went to school before. So imagine the learning process of these youngsters. It's everything happening in 1 year and so fast. So we were dealing with a really different group. So we decided to come up with the idea of the notebooks, where you could, because I have a notebook which is more visual writing than a diary. So I shared that I had that book, and that they could build up their own notebooks. So, and what I was doing, I was giving some tips and some ideas of what they could write or glue, collage, or draw in their notebooks. And also always with the support of Ulrika, because she was the one that knew what were the state of mind of them in a specific month. Were they failing to school because of their own personal lives or not? Should I talk to them about what was going on or not? So it was very sensitive and fragile process. But as well as with the 10 circle, I'm so proud of what we have done and what we have created. And mostly I'm so sensitive, because I'm in Portugal, and they are here, and they are in other places too, with their hearts and their souls and their wounds again. And somehow my feeling is that through writing and through the importance of writing, we create strong connections and strong relationship. And no matter what is going to happen now with this group, because I would love to continue to work with both, but no matter what, I know that none of us will forget each other. And for me, this is this is already enough. And enough has to be a word totally linked with writing. So
Okay. So my two groups, Mel's gang contacted me, I think just before Christmas. Their teacher contacted me, and she told me that the group had preferred not to continue with the sessions, that they felt that their other academic pressures were such that it was a challenge for them to carry on. So that one ended just after Christmas. The other group, the unknown, I continued to have connection with the teacher, but because they were drama students, they were rehearsing, and certainly from Christmas, very busy rehearsing and preparing to tour one of their assessed productions. And from Christmas onwards, all the focus for them was around their assessments, whether it was their own directed by Anna production, or whether it was their own directed by and stage managed by themselves. So for 16, 17, 18-year-olds, that's quite a heavy pressure. And the theatre studies was only one of the subjects that they were pursuing. There were other subjects that they were pursuing as well. But what I wanted to do was read some of the work that they produced. I suppose we talk about outcomes and how we measure, how we put a value on the project and how we measure success. And I think for both of us, we're very interested in the process.
absolutely.
And what the young people gain through the process. Yes, it's great to have some product, and certainly Inish's groups have got some very concrete, tangible product, but we also need to kind of get under the skin of that and examine other other benefits.
Before you read, and also is that loads of results, they are not part of these outcomes, not the exhibition of the notebooks or the book launch, because sometimes it doesn't matter to keep everything as a product, you know. So there were several workshops, even with me and Ulrika, that we had made, because there's a big difference between the two groups. With Ulrika group, I mean, I was here 10 days in February, and I went to school every day to give workshops to this class, while with the other one, I just was once. So there's a lot of results and work done, but that we didn't record because it was not necessary, you know. It was, and because also this was the experimental year of this project, and now we are thinking about all these details, and you will help us, I hope, to think about it. So go ahead.
So I'm going to read you a couple of pieces, and I want to talk about another extension to it's a part of Young Writers Lab, because it's up there on the website. So this is written by Diedrich Flored. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. And it was written in response to the first prompt that that we chose, which was about leaving, because I was just about to leave Tranås. So this is called I'll Miss You. Standing at the station, people walking, trains running, recorded voice ringing, I'll miss you. Wordless nights, felt bliss, knowing tomorrow we would kiss. Farewell, see you soon, I'll miss you. Standing in the park, parents walking, children running, sounds of birds chirping, I'll miss you. It will not be long, but it definitely seems like forever. Those are the words of a 17-year-old young man. Very moving. And another piece written by...
Maybe you can go down, and then you are really there.
No, I'll do it from here because of the mic. This is called It Starts Here, and it's by Felix Hammerskjöld. The doors of our lives are burning. Maybe wood wasn't the best, but this is for our learning. We learn to function through the chaos and pain, but we must all know that for our mistakes only we stand for the blame. We walk out and in, but I think that not everybody gets the real thing. What is truly an exit and an opening? It's a thing that we all can be joking and looking. It can be places in different places or floors. But when you get there, you know you chose the right set of doors. In the door that we enter may not be the one we go out to. And just because we choose another path, our choice isn't always number 2. We see them every day and all the time, but the right door isn't always the one who shines. Dark ways are sometimes better for the outcome and us, but choosing this isn't as easy as entering the train or bus. Mine and everyone's paths may not ever be clear, but I swear my goal is there somewhere, and it's mine, and me and everyone will get there in time. But the will may be changed during the way, and then we must take action, because the will and goal is morphed, so both need to go well to get to the satisfaction. My time to go out is soon here, but I got so many ways to go, so it will take time to get there. So again, the consideration, very mature consideration from 17-year-old young man. There are other pieces from the group, and either they didn't get back to me to give their permission to read the pieces out, or there was one young person who declined. She would prefer me not to read her work out. Those are the original pieces that they wrote. They emailed those to me, or Anna emailed them to me, and I made some comments on them, some kind of constructive criticism, if you like, to give them feedback. And I think some of them were looking for more constructive and more technical feedback, and others were kind of quite content with the feedback that I gave them. But I've not read out their any amended pieces. Those are as they wrote them, because I felt it's important to honour those, and I'm not clear what they've done with the suggestions that I made for them, and that's something that I think we need to work on, is how we keep that continuity and help them come to it's never finished, but a more complete and finished piece. So that's a little bit about the technical teaching, creative writing stuff that I did. Can I just say a quick word about Words Over Water?
Yeah, of course.
So I personally, I had a bit of a sense of frustration about losing one of my groups. Wasn't here to be able to establish another group, but had a very close connection with a well-known young writer from town, with Julius Berglund. And he was happy to join up with two young boys that I'm in connection with back home through my music connections and through my theatre connections. So we've now set up a young writers lab group, which is one young person in Sweden, in Tranås, and two young people in Carmarthen. And we've met and Skyped, either me with the young lads in Wales or me sitting with Julius. You know, we have had a three-way Skyping session as well, and they tell me that they've connected with each other behind the scenes, so we've got that international connection, which is great. And I'd like to read you one of Julius's pieces, and he wrote it in Swedish and he translated it into English. This is called Everyday Leaving. Handcuff, foot cuff, cable ties around the stomach, attached to the bed by heat. One hand here, one leg there, a brain that was left down in the depths somewhere. First class, important. Second class, important. Third class. As a cocoon with face and feet, I dragged myself forward through the refrigerator of morning mist. And that young man is a top prize-winning writer in the region, and he'll go on to great things. But it's not necessarily about making great writers, and not necessarily about making the elite. It's about opening up the opportunities that creative writing can bring to all of us. I know that's a philosophy which is very close to Derek's heart particularly, and I think close to Kultivera as well.
Mm-hmm. And now you can do the bridge between this year and the next, just a sentence.
So we're at a very exciting point. As a result of the work that we were doing, and Peter in his position developing literature across the region, Kultivera has been successful in securing 500,000 Swedish crowns to develop the project across the region over the next 2 years. Extending the project to become a community-based project as opposed to a schools-based project, to spread from Tranås to Jönköping and Vetlanda. They were the kind of stated centres for the development. And also to bring in another third international writer to accompany myself and Inês, and also for us as 3 international writers to match with 3 Swedish writers. So
because we
that's
saw
our
the
development.
importance of it.
Yes.
In terms of translations, and because the international cultural part of the project has to continue, because it has bring so many things to think about, and the cultural exchange, it's a tool for tolerance and for several things. But then we realized that there's a lot of languages going on here, and that it would be to go a bit further in terms of narrative work and critical analysis and so on of the outcomes of the youngsters. We would need the international part of the team would need a couple other people working with, and they would be the Swedish writers.
Okay. Like to say a little bit, just to run through the combination of the challenges and the issues for consideration for the project. And there are about half a dozen that we've identified, and maybe from you listening to us, you can think of others. So the first one, Inês, you said a little bit about the digital technology and the challenges that presents us, and how do we kind of understand and feel that engagement with a group when there's the cold screen between us. And it was certainly something that I was aware of, but I think you were more sensitive to that issue. The agenda. Whose agenda is it? You know, clearly we have as an agenda as writers. Kultivera has an agenda. That needs to be put behind the scenes, and we want to be as young people focused and young people's agendas focused as we can be. And I think there were a couple of times for me in the project when that's why maybe it didn't succeed as well as it could have done, because there was a different driver there for some people. I think we need to be very mindful when we're recruiting people for the future that they understand what the project is about and kind of share our values and our beliefs about what's important. Do you want to say something about resilience? Resilience.
Yeah, to be resilient.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the groups that we work with, but with so many details surrounding this will to write, which is the digital means, the agendas, being away, being far away, and sometimes without contacting for 2 weeks or 3, and then you just have to catch up, and then you see that so many things happen in one's lives. So how to be resilient and to all together.
Yes.
I mean, how we can build up there in the project.
Yeah, and I think for us as writers, I was very aware that Inês was working with some incredibly vulnerable young people, and what kind of support and supervision
Yes.
we might call it, what kind of support we would need as writers when we're hearing the stories that those young people have. And linked with that, in the UK and maybe in Ireland, we would call it the safeguarding issue. Being very careful to keep proper professional boundaries between ourselves as writers and international writers and those young people. and making sure that those boundaries aren't being transgressed in any way, and that we're working within within our own ethical boundaries and within the legal and ethical boundaries of the host country. And also for me, evaluation. How and in what way and with what techniques do we evaluate? How do we measure success of the project? And I think we've got... Yeah, but I think we've got a fantastic opportunity, because the funding application is quite open, and I think we've got the opportunity to, from our experience and our own reading, to put our own success measures on this, rather than having success measures imposed upon us by somebody else, by the funder. So I think that's a real strength and an opportunity for us, and we need to take that and be creative in how we develop that evaluation.
Yeah. Done.
Young Writers Lab. And Eureka, yes. And Peter and Colin for their support. And after this, there's going to be a kind of young person, and everybody's welcome, young person's guerrilla poetry activity, where we're going to be chalking our words on the street, and then there's the launch and the exhibition event with Inês
with
in the
4
library.
of the 10 Circle young writers there.
Yeah. So,
And also the exhibition
Yes.
of the Tweaked group will be there while we are doing the book launch. So.
yeah. So thank you very much for coming and listening.
And
see you soon.
just shoot.
Shoot.
Shoot questions.
Shoot the messages.
Ideas. Shoot everything.
I'd like to also point out that Portugal and Cafe, there's half an hour haiku workshop. If you want to do some haiku poetry writing.
Okay.
Yeah. And if any of you have questions about the project, go for it now.
And go and search the website, Young Writers Lab,
Also.
and it'll have more stuff on it after today. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm the person who will be holding the haiku workshop.
Okay.
But on that note, I was wondering if you have, the Haiku International Association, which is based in Japan, they do a lot of haiku competitions worldwide for children. It's very, in many countries, it's part of the Japanese youth culture that comes with games and cosplay and all of that. And I was thinking that it might be a way for you to find a common language within a very short poetry form, because basically you use your creativity to boil down the text into 3 or 2 or 1, maybe even very small lines.
Yeah.
And I feel that when I exchange haiku with other people around the world, because it's a very international community, that's probably the best way to describe it, with the various national haiku societies like British Haiku Sällskapet and Danish Haiku Society, they're everywhere, in Ghana and in Australia and Somalia, wherever you look really. But I'm thinking that what strikes me when I read and write haiku and exchange it is that sometimes you get the question when I speak of a growing African haiku scene, for example, that people will say, oh, isn't it really different, reading someone's haiku from Ghana or from the Philippines. And the funny thing is that it's very, very
transcultural.
General, really, somehow, the observations that we as humans make of nature and life around us. So, quite contrary, you will find that actually we've got much more in common than you originally
differences,
would have thought.
yeah.
And it's very difficult to judge whether a poem is written by somebody in New Zealand or somebody in Japan, in a way. So it's a tip, I think.
Yeah, yes, thank you.
That it would be a possible way to find that common language within all of those languages.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. It's really helpful. I'll perhaps come and have a chat with you after our workshops. Yeah, well, I'm doing the chalking. Maybe we can chalk haiku on the street.
Yes.
Okay.
That's okay.
Thank you.